Hi, friends. Welcome to Lawyer Up. In light of October's Domestic Awareness Month, we want to highlight a few stakeholders who have done significant work in this area. Today, our interview is an executive director of Daya, Houston nonprofit that empowers South Asian survivors of domestic abuse through culturally specific services and community education. She serves on the Housing Steering Committee and the Interfaith Advisory Council for the Harris County Domestic Violence Coordinating Council for the Texas Association Against Sexual Assault. Previously, our guest has served on leadership positions in academic programs across the country in international and domestic women's health. She's a native of Houston and a graduate of UT Austin. Here's a few fun facts. She's an ordained minister and still on the fence about getting married, apparently. This is coming straight from her. She also has an interview archived at the Library of Congress. There's not many people that can say that. In a past life, she's actually founded and operated a independent movie theater and art house in Fayetteville, Arkansas. She's 5 foot tall, but somehow loves heights and skydiving, roller coasters, and suspension bridges. If you're new to our channel today, please go ahead and hit subscribe so you can receive all our notifications for future videos. Go ahead and smash the like button and please leave a comment. Let us know if you have any strategies on how to share and spread more awareness on domestic violence and how we can curb the cycle of abuse. Friends, please join our e-newsletter. We have the link down below in the description box. We'd love to share the legal updates with you. And until next time, please stay safe. Without further ado, let's get to our interview with Rachna Khare. Well, hey, Rachna Khare, thank you for joining us on Lawyer Up Show.
Thanks for having me, John. This is so fun.
Yeah, it's going to be great. We have a lot of questions to ask you. You're doing a lot of great work with Daya, and I just got to know your organization that you're working with. You're executive director, right?
Yes, correct.
And I had the pleasure of meeting you and your team about, is it 2 years ago already, I think?
It was a while ago. Yeah,
So
with
wow,
COVID
time
time, things
flies.
are flying at different speeds. So
But for those that don't know Daya, can you give us a little snippet?
absolutely, yeah. Daya is a Houston-based nonprofit. We support the South Asian community who is experiencing domestic violence, family violence, or sexual assault. And we do that with culturally specific services. And we also prevent the cycle of violence from continuing by providing education and training and awareness to the community at large.
That sounds like a lot of work. So thank you for your dedication to the team and cause.
Thank you. It is a lot of work. We say we're small but mighty. It's a small team, but we get a lot done.
Oh, great. Yeah, you guys accomplish a lot of great work. So let's start with a little bit of your background. What propelled you to help domestic violence survivors?
Yeah, it's really interesting actually, because so many people that work in domestic violence, rightfully so, come from an background of social work or counseling, psychology, something like that. I was actually a biology major at the University of Texas. And back then I was thinking, I want to do something. I want to do like physical therapy or optometry, something in kind of allied health. And while I was thinking about what I wanted to do, I got involved in clinical research trials at MD Anderson. And we were looking specifically at ovarian cancer overseas in developing countries and ways to detect ovarian cancer. And what I learned, I was working at MD Anderson and then at Rice University, all with women's health in underserved communities. And the main thing I kept seeing is, wow, everywhere in the world, whether in the United States of America or whether I was in Malawi, the patriarchy is alive and well, and it's holding women back and it's holding men back, right, from having healthy families and safe families. And that's kind of what got me interested in the dynamic of gender-based violence, domestic violence. And I really, of course, wanted to do something local. After doing international work for about 5 or 6 years, I thought, hey, I want to do something close to home. And I started to look, and Daya was looking for, their permanent executive director at the exact moment. And I thought, well, it can't get more local than that. Right. Not only is it in Houston, but it's the South Asian community within Houston. So I went from a very global focus to a really local one, which has been nice, and I've taken the learnings with me.
You're still making an impact either way, right?
Yeah, it's really interesting. The lessons I've learned about fundraising, about outreach, about advocacy, and how those things play out in small insular communities versus on global scale.
And now now we're learning a lot more things to strategize to make it better, right? For our
Right.
the cause. So this is a very big question. What excites you or discourages you about continuing forward?
So what excites me a lot is these new discussions people are having around creating social justice that is accessible, right? So I feel like social justice used to live on a very academic level. And of course, there's always been grassroots activists out there, but we felt somewhere in between, right? We weren't researching domestic violence. We weren't out there on the streets protesting laws or doing any lobbying. We were doing direct services. But what's exciting me is that this moment, right, with Black Lives Matters and with Defund the Police and all these different things that are happening in which we are questioning these systems that were really not meant for women of color. And we're starting to say, okay, well, how do we change them? What I love is that it's broadening our definition of what healing can look like, what justice can look like. And what that leads to is more options. And I love that. I love that we don't give a prescribed formulaic option to a survivor that says, okay, you do A, B, C, and D, and then you're done. So I really love that we're starting to be client-centered in a more authentic way. And I think that's coming from this movement that's happening that we're seeing, which is really exciting. And of course, what's discouraging is that the government needs to catch up with these fantastic activists out there that are calling for broader social justice for all people. And the laws need to catch up with that and really look at the ways in which these problems are intersectional and the ways in which they impact minorities and women at a larger scale.
Right, absolutely. And kind of with both of those together, that what encourages you and also discourages you, hopefully the government will see that there is a continued need for funding organizations like Daya.
Absolutely. That, and I think, what it begs for, what really this moment begs for is the community to come out and get involved, right? And so this movement around helping women who are experiencing domestic violence, it started as that. It was very women driven. It was for women. It was by women. And what has changed now is that we're seeing the patriarchy and these systems in place create victims from people of all genders. And what I really like about this is that we're not saying that the government or even nonprofits are the only way to go or the only place to turn to for help. But what this moment is really calling us to do as a community is say, okay, I can't hide behind this anymore. I need to come out and be part of this movement. I've talked to so many people, and Daya started from 7 South Asian women who were just neighborhood friends. None of them were, well versed in domestic violence, but I have learned from people who started this movement that it was really great back then. It was really strong. It was about solidarity. And I love that sort of shift in mentality is coming back to where people are thinking, okay, instead of letting someone else take care of this problem, what can I do? Where can I step in?
Right, that's true. And back to the the Black Lives Matter movement right now, I think it all boils down to human dignity and respect, right? And
Totally.
you and I can attest that, especially from at least my pro bono experience, I see the same cycle that the client is going through. Everyone has a different story, but yet it's still similar. And
it is, and but what's so interesting about Black Lives Matters to me is that there are 2 kinds of trauma happening, right? Especially to to the Black community in this country. And the trauma is not just from the one-on-one harm doer, right? So it's not just the abuser who is harming a victim, but the systems that are in place are creating a secondary trauma. You know, the fact that victims of color find less remedies in the criminal justice system, find less legal representation, aren't able to get into shelters at the same rate. These are statistics that are sobering and they are real. And I love that Black Lives Matters is telling us that the trauma is, yes, interpersonal, but it's also part of this broader system, and that broader system includes the patriarchy, it includes white supremacy, and therefore women of color are left needing far more equitable solutions.
Rachna, you make a great point there. There seems to be I don't know, cultural barriers as well, or institutional barriers.
Yeah.
Let's just, of course, say for domestic violence survivors, but can you explain to our audience what is the cultural barrier?
Yeah. So that's so interesting because I'm second generation. So I was born here. I was born in Houston. And when I first learned about Daya's services, it kind of, I thought, besides language, I totally get the language aspect of it and the immigration part of it. What else is there? I thought, what else is keeping someone who is South Asian from going to like a Houston area women's shelter? But what I've learned over these past 4 years in this work is that the cultural barriers are so nuanced. They're so much more than what you can easily put on paper, which is like language, the obvious ones, language, immigration status. What it really boils down to, is this idea of like American individualism versus Eastern collectivism. And the fact that the stigma is so much stronger because leaving an abusive relationship leaves a stain on your family, that older women in the community are part of the patriarchy, they're part of this abuse by pushing their daughter-in-laws to stay in these relationships, even when they are incredibly unsafe, to hide what's going on. That the fact that I get divorced could impact my sister's ability to get married overseas is completely an idea that is unique, right, to many Asian communities. Also in-law abuse, we see that so much. It's not a thing that traditional mainstream domestic violence agencies are used to seeing. They see that as, oh, okay, well that seems separate from domestic violence. But when you look at these family systems where generations are living together and learning together and raising children together and leading families together, that is very, we see clients with multiple perpetrators most of the time.
That's enlightening and alarming at the same time, because one would expect it's only from the male gender, right?
Yeah.
The thought of saying you have to stay with your husband or whatnot, but it's also coming from the mom. And I didn't think, you just mentioned like if it could affect the sister. I didn't think about it. That did not cross my mind. I just only thought it's going to affect, the family name or the family crest, essentially. Yeah. And, because it affects their pride.
Right. And so then when, it's been interesting watching, there's a show on Netflix called Indian Matchmaking, and it's shown kind of this arranged marriage deal that happens. Is very common in the South Asian community. But what I found interesting about that is that, somebody's divorce, your sibling's divorce can really impact the way another family sees your whole family. And especially, there's such an incredible stigma on divorce, not just in the Asian community, but really everywhere. It's difficult, and definitely. I hope it's getting better. But the reality is that is viewed as a failure, where where I would think completely differently. I think that's a success, that you've created a safer space for yourself and perhaps for your children, and a healthier space for really everyone involved. Even aside from abusive relationships, divorce leaves, I believe, both parties in a healthier space.
I think so too. As a practitioner, I try to say things truthfully, of course, but to empower the client so that they can pick themselves up and go to the next page in their chapter in their life. I know it sounds
Absolutely.
cheesy, but it's really true, right?
No, it's so true. It's so true. I'm divorced myself, and I think about that. I think I was married at 27, divorced at 31, and now I'm 38. And I think about the trajectory my life has taken and how I just couldn't have foreseen it, right? And things in the moment feel so permanent and they feel so stuck,
Mhm.
but there is always a new page to turn, and we're always growing. And the way to grow is through change. Change is, of course, difficult.
Right. And along the lines of, those barriers, can you unpack a little bit what supportive services Daya provides in that line?
Yeah, what I love so much about, and it's our counselors, our case managers are on the front lines of this work. And what I love so much about each and every one of them is that they take each client as a person, right? And so the first thing we always start with is what is it that what is it that you ideally would like? And we get some crazy answers, of course, right? We hear people say, well, just make him stop abusing me. Or we hear people say, oh, just make him, make his mother-in-law move away back to India. Now, of course, there's things that we cannot do, but it's great to give that power back to the client and say, what does ideal look like for you? And then,
Right.
okay, can we get there? If we can't get there, where can we get? How close can we get to ideal, right? And so by doing that, we offer the main services are our mental health program. So we have licensed therapy, trauma therapy that we do in-house. And of course, all of this is completely free for anyone who calls our helpline, free and confidential. And we also provide case management and safety planning. So this is that navigation through systems. So whether it's the legal system, the criminal justice system, the housing system, or whether it's navigating back into social systems, back into your community. How do we work on stigma with your immediate family? How do we repair relationships that may have been lost due to isolation? So it's all very individualized, but overall it's counseling, it's case management, it's legal consultations and knowledge, connections to amazing attorneys, yourself
We need to
included.
get more.
Yes, absolutely. And it's rental assistance, it's financial assistance. Many times the abuse leaves people with no material resources. What I always like to say is they're not starting from scratch. They're starting from the experience that they now have, but the material resources are important. And putting a roof over someone's head gives them that opportunity now to work on their trauma and really rebuild that independence, that autonomy that everybody has the right to.
Absolutely. You mentioned like a living space. I mean, I don't know the percentage, but it seems that most of your Daya's clients do have children, and if they of
Yeah,
course care about them, so they want to be able to afford their own place as well.
right. Housing is tough, right? And after in Houston, post Harvey, Hurricane Harvey, housing became harder. Affordable housing is difficult. During COVID, it is even more difficult. But these are the places that we plug into our shelter partners for short-term safe spaces. And then we start to work with clients on which one of our housing programs might be suited for them. And if they don't qualify for a housing program for a variety of reasons, availability being the main one, then how can we help support them in building income, building wealth? Our goal is to have clients go from being surviving to thriving. And however long that takes, we're there with them to do that. And it involves many other parties, right? So we're domestic violence focused, but it is about helping them create those connections with those in their community and other community resources that are out there.
Well, this might be a good segue. You mentioned, trying to empower them to earn their own income. And so I know we have some programs that we're looking forward to create. I
Yeah.
don't know. I believe sometime end of the year or next year. Can you explain to our audience what that is? Because maybe someone in the audience has some connections for us.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think what we have learned from this work is that, anytime a funder asks me, what is it that domestic violence victims need the most? And at a very basic level, obviously, and maybe not obviously, but they need compassion, they need belief, they need autonomy. But at the material level, it's money, right? I mean, money is the thing that will give them more freedom, right? And so this is how they can start to rebuild their own, rebuild that autonomy. And so one of the things that we're really focusing on is financial empowerment. So we have already done an amazing training program. All of our advocates have done it, to where we can do really finances 101. Like, what does a budget look like? How do you do a resume? Where can we look for jobs? But we wanted to take that a step further. There's so many women in our community, in immigrant communities, that have been told that skills such as cooking, baking, being a seamstress, childcare, that those skills are not valuable. And in fact, those skills are talents, right? And so we're really working with clients now to dream very big, and to say, if you are interested in being an entrepreneur, if you could take one of your talents and make it your source of living, what would that look like? What could that look like? And really trying to get them there. So this includes helping people come up with a business plan, a pitch, and now we're connected to nonprofit microlenders. So one of our clients recently got a $10,000 0% business loan.
Oh,
to
wow,
start
that's wonderful.
an eyelash business. Beauty is a big factor, or a big talent that our community has. And we really just want to think about this as always, what are we doing? Can it be more empowering than disempowering? And obviously not everyone can flee domestic violence and start a new business, right? But what we want to say is, while you're doing the hourly job at the Walmart or the Target or the gas station, or while you're continuing to rely on child support, what are some spaces that you can start to really hone in and foster those natural talents that you have, to start building your wealth? And we really try to help our clients dream about what wealth could look like, what thriving could look like.
And it's closer to them than they think. They need some resources to learn better habits, for example, right?
Absolutely. It's that, it's the idea that also the financial system in America obviously looks entirely different than it does in different countries. And so just that basic level knowledge is huge. But then also, if you've been told for years and years that what you do doesn't matter, that you're worthless, that message kind of percolates in your brain and it gets stuck there. And so it's about unlearning those messages from the many abusers that many of these folks have faced in their life, and about really seeing what is possible. And I always like to say that if we start to open our eyes to what is broken, then you can really start to open your heart to what is possible. And so, rebuilding a healthier family dynamic can lead people to wonderfully motivated places where they can accomplish a great deal. We have clients who are homeowners now, and 2 years ago,
wonderful.
They were in a homeless shelter.
Well, I think of it ultimately, what are we trying to achieve? Daya's trying to achieve and that's breaking the cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Because, clients have children, and we want to help contribute to that next chapter and just get to the next step, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's
true. When children witness domestic violence, they're more likely to either commit that violence later on in life or be victim to that violence later on in life. And that is the most important break that we can do, is showing these young kids that mom or dad or whoever it was being abused, they did it, and they did it in part for you, but they also did it for themselves. There's a lot of self-dignity there that our children are looking for us
what's crazy is that I have I have a 22-month-old.
Yes.
And even when she was younger than this, right now, she can mimic our tone.
I know.
So if we're excited, she's going to be excited and start laughing. Or if we're sad, she's sad. It is amazing. So I can imagine for children who an abusive household, even if they didn't witness the abuse,
right.
just the mood, right?
Exactly.
In the room.
And fear, as we know, is so powerful, right? Fear is such a powerful demotivator, right? So when you are afraid, you are not going to go out there and take healthy risks. You are not going to be yourself, be authentic, speak your mind. And that in the end leads to a unsafer society, right? Less safe, more unproductive. It just, we are not being, if we're not allowing children to be their true selves in a really safe space where their boundaries are being respected, we're creating a community that's less safe. And that's why this isn't just about one couple, one family. It's really about our whole community.
Right, and I know we had a strategy talk a month or two ago. We talked about finding ways to help children, but we're in the planning stages right now. So I'm
We're
excited
super
how we.
excited about that, though. Already right now we do provide safety planning to the children of our clients. It's important that we recognize, like you were saying about your daughter, that kids are smart and they are intuitive and they know what's going on. And so trying to blind this from them, we always have clients say, "Oh, but the kids haven't seen anything."
Right.
They're feeling it. And so we do a lot of safety planning with children so that they know kind of what to do when a situation is dangerous or escalated. And that gives them power too, right? So domestic violence is all about the abuser trying to take all the power and control. And really what we're trying to do is wield that back to
Right.
every member of that family.
For sure. Well, you mentioned, helping clients get the skills and where they're working at, like set job, like retail jobs. But just to the next question, what misconceptions there are that the public may not know about DV survivors, and I can share one now, and it could be a person who abuses could be an engineer. They have a
Uh-huh.
lot of high skills, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. We have clients that not only is the abuser can be highly educated, highly successful,
Mhm.
but the survivor is too. I mean, we have clients who are doctors, who are lawyers, who make quite a bit of money. In fact, that they even say, "Oh, I can't take these services for free," and we always encourage them to give back once they're out of their situation, give
Right.
back to their community to help strengthen it. But that's the truth. I mean, our clients, and especially coming from immigrant households where many people have gone on to get continuing education and higher level degrees, there are clients who may not know any English, and then there's clients who are practicing physicians. And so we do see that whole realm, because there is a stat that 1 in 3 women will experience domestic violence in their lifetime. But the stat does not, there's no correction for income, socioeconomic status, education. There really just isn't, because this is not an issue about behavior, it's an issue about values.
Right.
And if, as an abuser, you think that your value is more than that of your partner, that's not a thing we learn in school, right? That's where that cycle comes into play. We learn that at home.
Right. And in fact, someone who's a survivor, even if they have a professional occupation, I'm just thinking in my head, the family on both sides probably has a higher standard for me if I were in that position
Yeah.
to stay together as a family. So,
Absolutely. And they also do the victim blaming. Like, how could you let this happen to you? Right? You are so educated. You have a job. You are, you're so well read. How could this happen to you? And,
right.
I hear that, from a lot of our supporters too, which is, "Oh, I really want to help out because I know that if I was in this situation, that I could just leave." And I think people think of that as resource driven. That's one part of it, but
Mhm.
there's a huge safety aspect. And even if you have a second home to go to in the Hamptons, if you are leaving an abusive relationship, that abuser is losing control, and that is when they really lash out, and that's when explosive phases of violence occur. And unfortunately, that's the place where survivors are at most risk for homicide and incredible harm.
Right. So that's when the safety planning is definitely crucial.
Yeah. The idea that you can just get up and leave is actually, it's not smart. And that's why I think that the women who take their time to really plan it out, despite all the voices around them saying, just leave, just leave, just leave, it's even harder, right? But taking your time is the way this is going to be successful.
That does for sure make sense because I need the planning it's set in place.
Right. And you
Mhm.
can think about what can go wrong, right? That's always, I'm so proud of our clients. They're able, because we ask them that, like they know their situation better than anybody. So we'll ask them, where are the places where this plan could go wrong? And they find the holes in that plan. And then we can come up with, okay, what do we do if, for instance, he comes home early from work that day? So we're really counting on their expertise because they are the expert of their life.
Right. Actually, I was going to ask that question, because of COVID-19, and pretty much seems like 99% of people are staying home if they
Yeah.
can. So I just imagine we talk about these type of challenges during this time, but your team has come up with solutions. And can you share that with us?
Yeah, what we've thought is like, if they can't come to us, and it's never, super safe for us to go to the home of a client, that's not what we do even outside of COVID. But we've thought about ways in which we can still communicate with clients safely. One of the things that we've done is started offering text messaging as an option to
Mhm.
communicate. We've also done a great program where we're improving technology access for our clients. So it's about giving them smartphones and laptops so that they can use, we use a virtual program to do their counseling, to do their case management.
Mhm.
But we're also, like, for basic needs for groceries, we've set up a little small food pantry. And when we know a client needs food, but they're living with the abuser, perhaps they're experiencing neglect, we can create like a box of food
Mhm.
and just drop it off at their doorstep. We don't need to put our name on it, or we could give this to the mosque or the temple that can then give it to the client. So there's really interesting ways, when you work with the community,
Mm.
to be able to get things out there. We've been dropping off cell phones in the mailboxes of neighbors, at
Wow.
school counselors. So it's been, it does take the whole community, because it is, like COVID, a public health problem.
Wow. That's really innovative. I didn't even think of those creative solutions.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. People are willing to help, but you just have to remind them that, like, we're not the saviors here. We're
Right.
not saving people's lives. We're not telling people what to do. But you can be the conduit between this client and safety by just passing them along a laptop.
Right. So the more people that are willing to help, the more people that have knowledge of how to help, they'll just be
Yes.
ready. But at the same
Right.
time, if the survivor is listening now, they have to ask for help as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the key, because again, survivors are the expert in their own experience, and they know when it is not safe to reach out, and when it is, and when they're ready and when they're not ready yet. And all of that is completely valid. It takes really careful planning, even before you start to consider to leave. And I will remind people that if you are a survivor and you need help, you don't have to be ready to leave to get help from Daya. Like, we're here to get you ready to even start thinking about it. If this is a thing that is just an inkling in your mind and just the seed is planted, give us a call. There's absolutely no mandated services that you have to do. You can talk to us one time, you can talk to us multiple times, you can talk to us, skip 6 months and call us again. It's extremely flexible because that's what's needed, for a problem like this.
No, great mentioning that. Even if it's to find out what a safety planning could look like.
Absolutely. Or even just to find out, when you guys say you have legal services, what does that mean? Or
Mhm.
even just to find out your legal rights. There's so many immigrants who think, well, if I get a divorce, from my American citizen husband, that means I'm getting deported and I have to leave my child behind. Not
Right.
necessarily the case, right? We know there's protections out there. Those protections are incredibly important. And that's our role as advocates, to advocate for those protections to stay.
Absolutely. We'll actually be covering that with your coworker, Dr. Amin, pretty
Yes.
soon.
And she is the advocate. We always laugh. She is the queen of believing in the power of systems change. And she can look at things from a big picture perspective and really, really see how these policy issues impact everyone down to the neighbor next door.
Right, for sure. So we'll cover that. Everyone has rights in America,
Yes.
fortunately. So, um, but yeah, I'll save the political talk for a different time. But
Yeah.
I think I have one more question. Okay, so my other question is probably redundant, but uh, what if someone in the audience can help? What are the different ways someone could help? Because I know they can go to the website, but what's your pitch?
Yeah. So I think the best way to help really right now, domestic violence survivors during the age of COVID is unrestricted dollars, right? So we have a lot of people in the community who have money to give, and who are so generous with that. But what I would tell people right now is to pick the nonprofits that you trust their leadership, that you trust their work, and give them whatever you can, and just let them do the work with that. Because I think right now restricted dollars are difficult. So if we get dollars that are only for housing, but we're finding that clients are not able to flee right now because they're stuck at home with their abusers, but what they do need is technology. It becomes harder if there's restrictions on that money. The next most important way to help, because I know there's a lot of people out there who aren't in the financial position to give, is to check on the people around you. This is so important, to check on your neighbors, your friends, your family members, your those who you worship with, and obviously to do that in a safe way. I mean, it's texting, it's calling, FaceTiming. If you start to see signs of isolation,
Mhm.
if you start to see red flags, like a spouse who is controlling who the person can talk to or how long they can talk to, controlling finances, controlling access to food, controlling access to the phone. These are all things we're seeing in COVID. And what abusers are saying is, oh, well, we're doing this to save, to conserve, because there's so much economic instability.
Mhm.
That's not okay. If you see your friends or community members being isolated or controlled, giving them the resources and giving them a confidential ear to talk to, right? So telling them, like, listen, whatever you tell me stays between me and you. I just want to make sure that you're okay and that nothing bad is happening to you, because you don't deserve that. And then if they tell you something, helping them, asking them, okay, can I take notes for you? Can I write down the date and the time that this happened so that I will have this record for you? These are great ways that you can support your friends. And then obviously giving them the number to organizations such as Daya. Our number is 713-981-7645. But there's also 24-hour hotlines. People may not be ready to engage with the police. A lot of times people
Right.
don't want their harm doer to go to jail. They don't want their harm doer to be harmed by the police or the prison system. What they want is for the harm to stop, and they want for themselves to become safer. And just to know that there are a plethora of ways to
Right.
do that, and we're so willing to get creative with folks. But we need the community to encourage people and let them know that there's nothing to be ashamed of, that they stand with them, and that there are people who are here to help them get to where they want to be and where they absolutely deserve to be.
Mhm. Well, that's very helpful. Thanks for sharing those options for people that want to help out or volunteer, donate. But you mentioned calling 911. So
Yeah.
just a quick tip to share. If you do call in 911, I encourage you to file a report. Share the story of what happened to the police officer. That's why they're there.
Yeah,
Don't worry about, the pride or family.
that's right.
Share the story, and then you can work out the details later.
Yeah, that's right. Those 911 calls are so difficult to make. And we've had clients who had amazing experiences calling 911 where the abuser was arrested. And then we've had the opposite happen where the survivor herself was told she was, overreacting. So the situation can obviously go both ways because the police are there to stabilize a situation. We have so much respect for the police that do this work. They actually go out in pairs because for domestic violence calls, because it's so volatile. You never know what you're walking into. But that being said, it is important to get your story down. And even if you're not ready to share it, if it's safe to do so, to keep a diary, if you have internet access, to have a private email address where you can email yourself or keep like a private Google Drive of the abuse that you're experiencing, all of that will come to help you in the end. It's going to be it will be a powerful tool to have that evidence on your
Oh,
side.
that's a great idea for the quick note taking. The I was gonna say, with the defund police movement, I know some people don't like that hashtag, but
Yeah,
it's getting people to talk, right? That's the point,
which I love. Yeah.
right? So maybe this opportunity with this conversation is that the police academies, because if an organization like Daya can speak to the officers, the trainees at the
Yeah.
time, right? Give them a better overview to some extent
And
what an abuser could go
and
through.
that's something that we do, and I think all domestic violence agencies make a really strong effort to connect with local police departments and provide trainings. And police on the flip side are so open to receiving that training. I think the problem here, and this is again just my opinion, is that we're asking police to do too much on that call, right? So they're supposed to go investigate that situation, figure out, de-escalate it, investigate what's going on, but then also provide resources for a victim, and then also make sure that those resources are provided in a private way. It's a lot, right? And do crisis intervention. Like one person couldn't do that. The same way I always say, I'm so lucky at Daya that we don't have to be the cop, the judge, the jury. We don't have to parse out, he said, she said, whatever, who said. We get to we're in this lovely position to just be on the survivor's side 100%. And what I like about Defund the Police is that what it's saying is that, like, we can't put all our eggs in this one basket, right? And so are there ways to take some of these funds and put them elsewhere? And I guess that's that's sort of reform as opposed to abolish,
Right.
what I'm talking about. But when I hear folks who are activists on the abolish side, on abolishing the police and kind of starting from scratch and starting over, they look at cities like Portland or places like really all over the country,
Mhm.
where protests are happening and police are showing up in tanks and with very militarized, and we think, how are rape kits not getting tested? How
Right.
do we
That's
not have money
true.
for that, right? And so and that's where I'm still formulating my own personal opinion on whether reform or whether abolish or whether defund, what all of that would look like, it could look like. But what I love is that, again, opening our eyes to what is broken helps us clear the pathway to what is possible. And I think in the end, we all want safer communities. There isn't anyone out there that doesn't
Right.
want safer
Absolutely. Yeah, I think people are getting distracted by these key words, defund or abolish. It doesn't actually mean like get rid of the police department and they won't see them for a year.
Yeah.
Just
Well, for some people it
restructuring.
does. Yeah, I mean, well, for some people, when they mean abolish, I've been on calls where, like, when they mean abolish, they mean abolish, and it
Yeah.
is a strong stance to take. And I respect it. I think that the activists working for that movement are incredibly necessary because it is holding somebody to the flame on accountability, and that's important. But in the meantime, we have to take care of the people who are experiencing crimes in the moment, as it's building the plane and flying it at the same time, right? So
Right. Right.
that's where I feel like all of these voices are important in this movement. What I like is that we're all agreeing that some shift has to take place.
Right. So, what I meant to mention earlier, you said that a police officer is handling all these different responsibilities. Is this an opportunity where there could be, because I've heard the term like community liaison could be there to
Yeah.
help out, right?
Absolutely. So actually, in HPD has been incredibly, or Harris County has been incredibly innovative in their high risk department. So what they do is they have a high risk domestic violence team, and at certain zip codes at certain hours, when there is a family violence call, there is an advocate that is sent with the police. And once the situation is deemed to be not of risk to, not like an active shooter
Right.
situation, the advocate can then work one-on-one with the survivor while the police do their job of investigating and gathering evidence and all the many other minutia, important, detailed work they're doing. At the same time, there is an advocate that is there just for that survivor. It's a really innovative program out of Kim Ogg's
Right. Right.
office, and I believe started by Carvana Cloud a couple of years ago. And of course, because of funding, it is limited to certain zip codes, certain times where they find higher levels of
I
family
see.
violence calls. But there's an opportunity to grow that, and I
Okay.
think it would be really beneficial to
Well, I
do
need to
that.
do more research on that. I think most people think it doesn't exist right now, but that's good
Yeah,
to hear.
no, they do a fantastic job. It is that I call Daya small but mighty. They are a small but mighty team as well. Yeah.
Great. Great. Well, we could go on for hours. We actually have a call together with the committee later today.
Yeah, we do. I'm
Uh,
talking to you in an hour.
but we could cover. I think we covered a lot of ground for different
Yeah,
audiences. So thank you for your knowledge and sharing your story.
of course. I just want to give our phone number one more time.
Sure.
So to reach Daya, anyone can call if you are experiencing domestic violence, if you know someone who's experiencing domestic violence and just need some tips to help them make the call. Our number is 713-981-7645. All of the information we gather from you is confidential, and it is all trauma-informed, client-centered. Nothing is mandated, so we are just really here to support you in whichever way you need to be supported.
Well, thank you, Rachna. We're going to actually include the information and
Awesome.
the number on the description below. We
Yeah,
appreciate it.
great. Thanks, John, for
All
having
right.
me. Thanks for doing
Thank,
this too. This is so important.
thank you.
All right, I'll talk to you
Talk
later.
to you later. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Friends, if you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe down below, smash the like button, and please leave a comment. Let us know if you know any new strategies on how to spread more awareness of domestic violence. And stay tuned. And until next time, please stay safe.